Hi, I'm sitting on the steps of the house that we built a few years ago, and we decided to put a bit of a garden next to the stairs on the way up. And so I was looking for things to plant in here and found a little packet of cosmos seeds at the nursery. So kind of threw them around and was great. All these flowers kind of popped up that first spring into summer and even autumn. I thought I might collect some seed ready for the next year, but I needn't have bothered. The flowers actually sprung up everywhere, even more than the year before, overshadowing all the other plants, even popping up in the lawn, a little bit of soil next to the carport, in amongst the weeds of the blocks next door, and even at the compost heap where I'd taken the old plants and dumped them up the back. It reminded me of a reading from Harvest Festival that we'd had just a couple of weeks ago that I'd celebrated out at a couple of our congregations.
The reading at that Harvest Thanksgiving Festival a couple of weeks ago was Jesus speaking, saying, "Therefore I tell you, do not worry about your life, about what you'll eat and drink, about your body, what you'll wear. Consider the lilies of the field. They don't toil or spin, and yet not even King Solomon in all his glory was clothed like one of these." My first response was a bit of a, "Do not worry." You've got to be kidding me. What an inappropriate reading for a time like today. The whole world seems to be going into worry overdrive. I decided to sit with the reading though, and to see if it might have something to teach me. Context is always really important, and the first thing I noticed was that Jesus began that little section of teaching with "therefore," and so we needed to just back up a bit to see what he said just before that. Jesus had said you can't serve two masters. You can't serve both God and wealth. Almost like we can't put our hope, we can't put our faith, our trust in money and wealth and things to get us through the future. Luke, when he tells this little passage about do not worry, also has a lead in before he says, "Therefore, do not worry." And in Luke's gospel, he gives a story that Jesus told about a rich man who has a bumper harvest. And as this enormous harvest comes in and he thinks about the future, he thinks, "I'm going to hoard it all for myself. I'll build big silos and I'll store it all and I'll be set. I can keep it all for me and I'll be right for the future." As I thought about the themes that were coming out in these readings about worry for the future, about hoarding for ourselves, about how we can't put all our trust in things and in money, the readings started to feel very contemporary and have a lot to say for today. So what then's the answer? A big part of it, I think, is trust. The philosopher Kierkegaard talked about trust being and faith being like floating in water, just trusting that all that deep water underneath you will actually hold you up. And the more that you thrash and you struggle and panic, that you'll actually sink. But if you lie back and trust that water to hold you up, then you'll float. When we do that, when we look around and we kind of trust rather than panic, it leads to an attitude of gratitude and thankfulness. Just what that very Harvest Thanksgiving Festival was trying to do, to take time out in the church's life to say, look around and all the amazing variety that nourishes and sustains our life, and let's give thanks for that. When we do give thanks and that gratitude comes out of us, it makes us much more likely to share, to actually connect with the others who are around us. Whereas the panic and the worry about the future and the hoarding for ourselves just brings us very inward looking in a very selfish way. Finally, I looked at how that passage finishes at the end. And Jesus says, "So do not worry about tomorrow. Tomorrow will bring enough worries of its own. Today's trouble is enough for today." Made me wonder if Jesus wasn't so much saying, don't worry at all, but actually where should the focus, where should our attention, where should perhaps our worry be? Many things in the future, many things that we worry about might never happen. We actually can't do anything about the future. We can do a bit of planning, but we can't live in the future. The only place we can live is now, is today. Jesus, after all, had just taught people in the Lord's Prayer to say, "Give us today our daily bread." Give me enough to nourish and sustain me for today. Let's focus on that and not worry so much about the future. But as long as I have enough to get me through today and to be thankful for that. So, who knows what the future holds? It's overwhelming for many of us. And we kind of wonder where it's all headed. But today, if we can bring our focus back to here and now, perhaps it'll help us to get through these worrying times. Do you have enough food, some clothing, some shelter, some human connection? Give thanks, realize what you have, and practice an attitude of gratitude. What can you, if we bring our focus back today, what is it that you can do now? Call someone and make a connection. Get out in the garden if you can. Find a spot in nature or look out a window and try to slow down. The longer that you sit and that you look, the more that you'll see. Be creative. Make something, paint or draw or read. Cook. Be aware of all the smells and the tastes that are around. Learn something new and bring our focus back to today. Do not worry about tomorrow because it will have enough worries of its own. And in these worrying times, may grace and peace be yours.